Welcome everyone to AI Watch. My name is Björn. I'm the Chief Data Scientist in 2021 AI, and today I have with me Nermeen Louizi, a Tech Program Manager at Lego. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Today we'll want to talk a little bit about bias in AI, being a big topic these days. What is your experience with bias in AI models?
I think I have it both as a professional but also as a consumer of products with AI in it. I think we forget that AI has always been around before ChatGPT. Even Google Translate, for example, uses elements of AI, and Google Maps and all of those technologies have been around for a longer time. And they have already started showing signs of bias. For example, the most classical example that most people know is when Google Translate, when translating from a gender-neutral language to a gendered language with pronouns like he or she. For example, if you say, this is a doctor, this is a nurse, it would say he is a doctor and she is a nurse. This is like the most elementary of the examples. Another example is that I think is really funny is Google AI when they came out with an experiment where you could, they gave you a prompt. So for example, shoe, and then you prompt you to draw it. So you do a little dribble and you try to draw a shoe. And if you drew a high heel, it would think it's a water slide or a chicken leg. Okay. And it's because at the time when you started training the data, you didn't have any high heels around because it was a mostly male-dominated team and you didn't think about it. It was a very innocent mistake, but there's also more serious cases, of course, in healthcare where if you are from racial minority in the data set, for example, if you're Black and you're a woman, you would not be detected in terms of some medicines and diseases.
So with bias is a kind of special topic, I think, in AI machine learning, because AI is about detecting patterns in data, right? Mm-hmm. And if we look on certain applications, for example, the insurance industry, bias has always been there, right? You always expected to get a higher price depending on your gender and your driving experience, your age, and what kind of car you're driving. How would you then define bias? What kind of patterns are biased from your perspective, and which of the patterns are non-biased, would not say is biased?
I think I would start maybe just saying that bias is not something we can eliminate. We are born with bias and we all have bias and will continue to have bias. But I think what is a little bit dangerous is that we are not aware of our bias sometimes. So I think it's that element of like, let's be aware of it and try to mitigate it and be a little bit more representative of the real life data set that we have, right? For example, when you see that women are being forgotten in some of the data sets, considering that we are half of the population of the earth, that is a bias that we could try to solve a little bit. Of course, it will always be biased, but at least try to represent the data set in our solution similar to how it is looking in real life. What is dangerous is that we don't know what we don't know. And so I think just being aware of your bias is already the first step towards like solving it, because you'd be like, yeah, well, those are the biases, those are the strengths and weaknesses of my algorithm. And that's where the limits are. And I think that's what ChatGPT did really well when they first launched the first version, the beta version of ChatGPT. They were very open about the fact that it's for research purposes and there's a lot of things that they haven't solved for. And I think that's something that is a bit dangerous with companies like Google and Microsoft when you just release it into their solutions without really notifying their users the fact that the AI is being used and that the fact that it is still something that's developing. So I think it's making both the consumers and professionals be aware of the fact that this is something that we're still trying to master and make better. Obviously, we'll never be perfect, but we're trying to aim for that.
I think it's also interesting that you mentioned we need to kind of define or discuss also a bit, what is bias, right? Because that might be also very different depending on what kind of cultural background we have and things like that, which probably needs to happen before we'll start thinking about the technical implementation.
Yes.
Now, there are obviously parts where, I would say bias is already a kind of no-no. The EU Commission has, for example, raised the flag around credit rating models, insurance pricing models, generally pricing and product offerings being biased against gender, that this is not okay. How would you say from a technical perspective now, if someone is using models to do these kind of things or other things, how would you go on that problem and detecting bias actually?
I think first of all, just having a system, whether it's something that you collaborate with another tool or just if you build it in yourself, that continuously assess and updates your models. I think that's super important. I think a lot of people don't actually have that first element of it. And then obviously just also collaborating across the field. I think it's not just the responsibilities of developers and people in tech to deal with this. This is something that we all should be collaborating on. The leaders, the business leaders that go out and want tech to come out really quickly, but then don't want things to be cheaper. So do you want Indians to annotate? I think that's the classic examples. But if you let your already data set be annotated in India because it's cheaper, then you'll have some bias because of course someone in India will see the world differently than someone in Denmark. And not to say that their opinions are not as important, it's just that we need to have a diversity of annotations, right? That's the first element. And that goes a bit against, even if we have the best intentions of mitigating the bias and assessing it, updating it, as long as the annotation of the data is also done with bias in it, that's already the first warning sign, right? And that's, again, going back, that's not something we can control. It's something business leaders need to be aware of and decide that we might have to spend a bit more money and make sure that different opinions and different thoughts are being incorporated into the annotation, and that we incorporate different people in it, which also costs money. Going back to companies need to, and business leaders need to accept that we might have to go a bit slower to make sure that the systems are at the quality level that we want it to be. Maybe have to move more responsibly and try to make sure that people are not left behind in the process.
A lot of the points that you're mentioning are actually going quite beyond it. You could say just a technical solution, right? Where you will typically say, oh, we need to embed the equal opportunity difference measurement for this, and we need to monitor that and dashboard that, which may be all fine and important to have, but it's also a lot about the organization I'm hearing out, right? How do we start with the dealing with the problem? Who do we involve? How much time do we give us? Can you share maybe a bit on what are your perspectives on organizational structure that maybe would support this kind of dealing with the bias?
I think, first of all, like creating a culture where we teach about this and like continuously discuss it and also welcome different opinions on it, because there's no right solution. I think because I'm talking about it doesn't mean my view of the world or my solution is the best. I think we have a lot of those privacy workshops and trainings in a lot of organizations. I think we should have some similar elements of like, how do we want to develop code and how do we want to develop AI, and how beyond operational AI, how do we want to include bias mitigation as part of a strategic move and not just as something that's nice to have, right? And then obviously having a transparent culture where I think for a long time developers were just seen as you're just coding something and we don't fully understand it. And so product managers, and I think even classically program managers, I think I have a technical background, so I think it really helps me communicate with developers, but I think classically you would have program managers that wouldn't really fully know what a scientist on the team or researcher or a developer does. And that's really wrong that we have that culture where, oh, well, that's something you're looking at. That's what designers are looking at.
So really also going beyond the, you could say, the technical profile, building up these responsibilities, creating not only awareness, but maybe also, you could say, incentives or kind of, KPIs or requirements for program managers, project managers to be aware of that, right? And be accountable for their decisions that they make then by advising the coders, right?
Also, because I think, maybe that's my ambitious take, I think everyone should be able to code and understand technology going forward. Otherwise, it's really unfair to just put it on developers to hold accountable for a system breaking down or showing bias. It is a group effort, right? We always talk about one team in every organization. Well, then everyone should be part of that.
Yep. I think that's a really nice closing, nice statement to finish our session today. Thank you for being here. It was a pleasure. Very interesting. Thank you everyone for watching this episode of AI Watch, and welcome back next time.